There was a study that was done. I was reading this article, and I know you guys have all heard about this. They took 5,000 resumes, exact same resume, and they sent them out. Various companies, literally exact same resume. The only thing that they did different on the resume was the names. Some names had more black sounds, some were not. Same exact resume, and the black sounding names did not get the jobs, did not get the callbacks. And it was the same exact resume. So, what was the motivator if it's the same black resume? So, to not include race as a factor it is like, no, this is what it is. You can skirt around it, you can make it sound pretty. It was a racist gesture, I still feel.
And that's that too, going back to the names piece, that was another thing they were talking about in one of the articles, that you can't necessarily totally do away with affirmative action because as soon as you see some people's names, you gonna know they black. And for
Devontae,
I mean, and for those
Anita.
universities that are still want to
Latricia.
practice, diversity, they're going to be able to see, okay, this person is black. And then when Connie mentioned, as far as like the essay portion, they'll still be able to, without mentioning race, a person will be able to perceive from
Right.
reading their essay that, okay, this is a person of color, depending on, how they interject, how their race may have affected their journey. So, yeah. So all is not lost, but go ahead.
It used to be, I remember when around our college age, when we were discussing, do I put, instead of Shanita, do I put Nita or Anita? So they're less likely to think, okay, this is a black
Wow.
female. That kind of died down for a little bit. And I think it's about to circle back around
Yeah.
now that we have removed affirmative action. We're going to start to see people come up with creative ways to sell themselves, which is not what's supposed to happen.
Right.
But you're going to see that again. Is what's going to happen. And then
Yeah.
when they come to the interview, you're going to hear the real name. But when they get hired, you're going to hear the real name. Not my name isn't Anita. That's just my nickname. It's actually Shanita.
I'm gonna be like,
that's
my
middle
name is L.
Or yeah.
L.
ELLE. What's up in there with Latricia?
And that's the thing, like, people look at like affirmative action has now a negative connotation. It's been stripped away from what it was supposed to be, and now it's like this. Uh, what do you call, like it's like the scarlet letter that people wear, and what it was it was protecting you at least slightly from having those harmful biases come into play and keep you out of places where you have every right to be. You have every right to apply to a Harvard or UNC. And if you're up to par with your application, you have every right to be in there and going to school and getting your education. Like, I always said, racism is the dumbest thing in the world because it works against the country that you're trying to have be successful. Like, think about all the black inventors that they kept hidden away. Think about like people they kept from reading, but they gleaned information from. Like, do you know how far we could be as a nation if racism did not exist? Like, it is stupid. You are biting the hand that feeds you, cutting off your nose to spite your
mouth.
face.
Yep.
And I'm like, these people have been innovative, and your goal is to say they don't deserve to be there. Like, do you not realize that you benefit from them being there? Like, it makes no sense.
I wonder how it's gonna play out. I know it's a little bit different, like at the Harvards, because Holly was quoting statistics that a lot of the athletes are white. I wonder how it would look if a lot of these black boys and black girls that are athletes start saying, you know what? I'm gonna go to this
Come
HBCU.
on.
That's
You know,
happening.
I'm gonna
Maybe done
go
changed the
somewhere.
law. We gonna put you back in. Come on. You know
I just
what?
wonder if those things will impact
Oh, my
as
Lord.
well. You know, like we have all these things out here now that we no longer can consider race. Are we still not going to consider race when it comes to what brings in money? Because we all know that
Mm,
sports brings in
come
money to
on.
Primarily
universities.
football.
Yes,
Yup.
this is
Yeah, they
football
don't like
country.
anybody affecting their almighty dollar.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I think we'll see some influence when it comes to the athletic department in schools across the country.
So I have a question just to kind of segue. We now know that affirmative action has been done away with per se. Shanita, from your HR background, how do you think, and whoever can also chime in, how do you think that's going to impact diversity and equity and inclusion? Because I'll be honest with you guys, when everything first happened, I was on Facebook and I was reading comments and stuff. And then I said, this is not good for my mental health, because I started getting upset and at what I was reading. And so, people were saying stuff like, finally, about time, we're leveling the playing field. And then I started seeing stuff that said, now we need to look at jobs. And so I'm very aware, and I'm sure you guys are as well, that it doesn't stop with universities. And so, what do you think? Like, how do you think that this change now that has taken place with the Supreme Court is going to impact the employment arena when you start talking about the diversity and equity and inclusion, which was very big? What was it? Just what, 3 years ago when George Floyd died, and everybody was hiring Black people, and everybody wanted to be aware and an ally.
Yeah. Well, first, it's definitely going to impact employers. And where we're going to see it first is starting with the recruitment process and who is hired. So we have simple things like maybe recruiters go to HBCUs to try to increase the amount of minorities that they have on the job. Well, now that might be out the window. And we have diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. So you have cultural teams where you look to get people who are of diverse backgrounds to help make informed decisions about protocol and policies at companies. So now if you're eliminating affirmative action, you're reducing the amount of people who may be able to offer you better advice about their particular groups. You're really not diverse anymore, is what it's going to lead to. So you're going to have less training on diversity, which we know one of the first things that happens when you have a situation like with a city police department is, say, with George Ford or any of the other individuals who were wrongfully killed, they automatically implement training procedures, protocol, because they want to make corrections. Well, now we're removing the one piece where we are trying to, well, the goal was to see some equity there, because what you're doing with equity is you're looking at each individual at their disadvantages and their advantages, but you are making it so that they have the same possible outcome. So now what's going to happen is people don't have the same possible outcome. So you won't have the diversity groups as much as you did before because it's not necessary. You don't need to have a one up, or we don't need to look or consider race. When actuality, we do, because we're going to see it in statistics. We're going to see that less people are being hired who are minorities. We're going to see even less people on the board of directors for different organizations. You can look now and see that there is not a great deal of diversity, equity, and inclusion if you just pull up your leaders for most of your corporations. We're not present like we should be. So if we're not present like we should be having affirmative action in place, what do we think is going to happen not having it there to help us?
Yeah.
It's going to be a great impact. We're going to see it. I also think there'll probably be more lawsuits for discrimination that come into play, because now it's free game for everybody. You just don't know. So people are going to push the envelope. They're going to test the water. They're not going to have the training in place because it's no longer a significant priority for companies and organizations as it once was when we had the protests and everything concerning George Floyd and the others who were wrongfully taken. It's going to be a great hit.
And you see that. So now a lot of corporations have this thing called ESG, environment, social, and governance. So where they consider like investing in areas based on like, you know, what is good for the social good of us all, right? And so like it's an investment strategy. And there are people in Congress right now fighting against it. They don't want that to be the case. They're fighting against it. Oh, they shouldn't have these programs and investment strategies that consider the environment or that consider societal issues, social justice being one of those societal issues. And you have people like, I would say this probably started, I want to say like back in the 80s is when I started hearing about like reverse racism. Like that's where they would come from. Like now I'm being discriminated against because you're getting in these positions that used to be strongly and strictly white male dominated. And so going back to the school, like you've seen a reduction in white male presence in a lot of these universities. And that's where a lot of that comes from. And then they have this, I call it the fear of being replaced by someone other than another white male. And so in employment, as Shanita said, like you're going to see those diversity efforts going away. Even now, with affirmative action in place, there have been multiple lawsuits about racial discrimination in the workplace. Like this has been in place since the 1960s. You have major cases in the 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010, 2020. Like these cases are still ongoing because even though we had these somewhat protections from affirmative action, people were still doing discriminatory actions. Like now the guardrails are going away. So the guardrails are gone. And if you're saying race can't be considered in education, they will come for employment next. And then people don't think about race is not the only protected class.
Yeah.
ADA protects people with disabilities.
Yeah.
Wow.
National origin, gender, those things. I'm like, okay, you're opening Pandora's box.
Yep.
Association.
What did you say, Shanita?
Military veterans. Veterans as well have protection.
Yes. And I'm like, those protections are going away for people who are like you. But you didn't think about it initially how you went about this.
Yep.
Like, it might start with us, but it will not end
with us. Right.
Because I was going to say too, like with the whole legacy, it's a lot of universities that have started to cancel the legacy admissions as a result of this affirmative action decision. So it's like they already starting to roll down the list, and sooner or later. And my thing is, to me, affirmative action kind of protects us from ourselves. Because when you think about it, we live in a society where race is a factor, where we're inundated with all type of negative images when it comes to Black and brown people. And so you cannot live in a society and it not affect you. Even if you are an unassuming person, you just going day to day and you love everybody. Oh yeah, I'm just in love with all people. But at the end of the day, those biases
unconscious
down into our subconscious.
They do.
So we need programs like affirmative action to protect us from ourselves. Even those who don't feel as though they're necessarily racist, you still have those biases.
You raised a good point. Because this isn't necessarily about tension between employees. However, as we've seen in the past, when there are major race issues, people come out the box. So they feel empowered, they feel justified to think wrongly, and there are more cases of discrimination, harassment, negative talk, like people are being bullied. So when we make moves like this that are as great as they are when it comes to the law that affects so many different people, the people we normally don't hear from, we hear from because they are empowered now to voice their opinion on race. And this is yet one of those things that I believe we'll see when it comes to tension in the workplace.
Yeah, because unconscious bias is a real thing. And so, like, to your point, Shanita, like, I know, and you guys probably have to do it on your job too, that how they make you sit through these trainings on this and watch these videos. But yeah, and I just remember, just because this is fresh because I just recently had to sit through multiple videos about bias and unconscious bias. And here's an example. Now take this quiz to see if you really do know what this means. And that's something that's being pushed through DEI. But if that's no longer existent, or if it's kind of, scoot under the rug, swept under the rug a little bit, people are walking around with unconscious bias all day and they're clueless to it. And so I agree with Holly. Affirmative action does protect us.
And with unconscious bias, it's like, I don't necessarily vilify people for having it.
Right,
you have to think about how society is shaped.
So
if whatever you think about me, you heard from Shanita, you never talked to me a day in your life. Your view of me is your unconscious bias because it came from somebody other than me. Like, you didn't get to experience me at all. Someone else told you what I was about. So that's where it starts developing. And then you think about how discrimination shapes this in housing, so in schooling. So you have redlining of the past and present, if you ask me.
I'm asking you.
Shape neighborhoods, right? It shapes who you live by. So if you're not living by somebody other than you, then what you learn about them comes from somewhere else. It doesn't come from them. Now you're not going to school with them because your school district is based on where you live.
Come on now.
You don't go to church with them because what do they say? The most segregated day in this country is on Sunday morning. So you're not going to school with them. You don't live in the same neighborhood. You don't go to church with them or synagogue or wherever you go to praise. So everything you learn comes from media or something one of your relatives has told you, something you've applied to yourself based on your own negative perception out of fear, ignorance, unknowing, or unwillingness to know. And so now this has shaped you, and now you're at the decision table. You see this resume. And it has this ethnic name on it. You can't pronounce it. Even though you can pronounce every Eastern European, Czechoslovakian, like, you can pronounce all those names. You can't, but you will make the effort to try because you grew up next to Annabelle Tchaikovsky. You'll make the effort, but Jarrell Simmons wasn't in your neighborhood. How do you pronounce this? Never mind. Let me just stick with what I know. And that, like, people don't look at it that way, but it is like you've been groomed in society to have biases based on other forces and powers that be putting you in that position. It doesn't seem negative to you because this is just my normal. This is how it's always been. I'm not feeling negative effects of it, so why should I care? Like, clearly they've done something wrong or they don't meet the requirements to be here. Otherwise, if they did, they would be here.
Mm.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah.
Oof.
It's a
It's
system thing. It's systematic. And just to touch on what Connie was saying, so the mother or father who could have relied on affirmative action to get access to getting in to get the interview now is not going to be seen. So they have to take the job, maybe that doesn't pay as well that they initially wanted, which means that, okay, now if we don't have the income coming in, now we can't move out of this neighborhood. Our kids have to stay in this school district, which means that our children don't get access to the same education that other children have. Okay, now they graduate from college. Do we have the funds to send them to college? No, because I didn't have the job. So, or maybe they didn't get a full scholarship, or maybe because of affirmative action, the schools are no longer recruiting to come into my neighborhood to get the kids that can't afford to go there. It's a system. And so now we've impacted not just one person that was looking for the job, you've impacted a family, a neighborhood, a community of people. This is systematic. It's not just affirmative action. It's
come
more.
on. Y'all preaching good.
My Lord.
Because I'm sending y'all a cash app. Send y'all an offering. Because it's true. I was thinking before you said that, which you said it so, both of you guys said it so eloquently. It's a rip. I was thinking to myself, it's a ripple effect. It doesn't, you throw the rock in the pond and the ripples go across the pond. And it's a Selah moment, because we do know. And so I guess to kind of shift gears, we've kind of already talked about what that ripple is going to look like. What can we do?
So glad you asked that. Because let me say this, and you know who I am and how I am. I'm going to say we are resilient people.
Come on.
And I don't care what stumbling block someone places in your way.
Come on
ain't
now.
gonna work.
We know how and who to get over it. And so I'm going to say I'm not worried about us, because Lord knows we have seen far worse than this. So what we do is we do more. Like, do more. I was talking to another attorney probably a couple of weeks ago. Like, how do we change the fact that we are less than 5% of the legal community? Well, we go out into the community and let people know, hey, this is an avenue you can take, and you don't have to like going to law school. People make it seem like this insurmountable effort that you have to make to get there. Listen, there were the A students and there were the barely made it students, but we were all in those same classrooms.
Cum laude, and thank you, Lord.
So, yes, there was some who graduated summa cum laude and others thank you, Lord. Like, that's just what it was. But we have to be more present and share information that you know. Like, there's one more, what is like, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Teach them. Go into these places where you already know resources are limited, school districts where resources are limited. Get your groups together, go tutor them babies. Like, go do that. Like, make provision. And what you don't do is sit up and complain and cry about it, because life will go on, and you need to be moving on and moving your folks on with it. Like, you can't just sit back and say, oh Lord, look, it's gone now. What is we gonna do? No, we're gonna do what we always did.
That's
get up
right.
and get things shaking. Like, do what you needed to have been doing when this guardrail was in place. You should have acted as though it wasn't. And so if you had acted like it wasn't there, and there are many who did, we wouldn't have to worry about needing it to be in place, because, okay, Joe trying to discriminate against me. So, all right, Joe, I'm about to go around you, Joe, And I'm gonna go talk to Dan because Dan is talking like he got some sense. Like there are more ways to get to what you want than depending on that one stumbling block. Because everybody's not gonna be a barrier for you. More often than not, you become your own barrier. So regardless of what they try to do, find other methods and means to get around it, like we've always had to do. Like, can you think of a point in history where we haven't?
No.
I'm with Connie.
So we're gonna be all right.
Yes, be all right.
500, right. I 100% agree with that. I think we are resourceful people. You know, when we couldn't go to PW, we have HBCUs.
Yeah.
When we couldn't go to certain services, we have a history of Black churches. So I think we've always been resourceful. And whenever you want something bad enough, you're going to get it. You're going to find whatever avenues you need to take to get there. One thing I am a believer of is if you have information, if you have knowledge, don't withhold it from people.
Right.
Share it. It doesn't matter if it's on social media. Maybe there's scholarships available that maybe other people wouldn't know about. Share that information.
Right.
Or maybe there are free resources being handed out in your community that people otherwise wouldn't know about because it's limited to, you know, certain people. Oh, we only want these people to know. Well, share it anyway. I think, you know, if we want it bad enough, we are going to get it no matter what hurdles are there, no matter what obstacles come our way. And even more important than that, I just believe what is for me is for me. And if it's God ordained, I'm going to be a willing vessel and I'm claiming it and going to grab hold to it and I'm going to walk it out. That's just how I'm going to live my life. I think if we take that approach, it doesn't matter what is created by law. God's law is greater than that. So that's just what it is.
Yes.
You got I was gonna say you guys basically have stole the show because I was getting ready to say part of my lasting comments was hope. And lasting comments, and you guys are giving so much hope. But go ahead, Holly.
Yeah, and I was gonna, just kind of piggyback off of what they said, supporting each other. Like before we were a integrated society, we had to be segregated and we supported each other. And as a result, we rose, to the occasion. There were many of us who were millionaires and, before things, got integrated. And so, nothing has changed. We are a resilient people. And I think it's also, we can't really, look at the few. And what I mean by that is that there are more for us than there are against us. We have more allies than we realize. And I feel like, and even, Biden, he's going to be holding a summit for colleges and universities that still want to uphold diversity. And so there's still a lot of colleges and universities that are looking to keep diversity going, regardless of what the law, is insinuating. And so I just think it's important to understand that there's more for us than there are against us, and we have ourselves, and that's been enough for us all this time. And so we gonna continue to make it, and this stumbling block is not gonna stop us, because it's just like the children of Israel. The more they were oppressed, the more they grew. And you keep on oppressing us, the more we gonna grow. Yeah. So all I say is keep on growing.
Keep on growing. Well, I will.
Sweet, before you give your last word,
okay, go ahead.
About more for us. So let me put in this good little bit of information. Both Duke University and the University of North Carolina have made it so that if your family has a certain economic level, say under $85,000, I think for UNC, free tuition.
Yeah, so
free tuition. So they're removing barriers in other ways. So, yeah, there you go.
So there's more for us.
Open doors.
Open doors. So I just want to say, I guess my last comments, I'm a ditto too, because I was gonna say something spiritual, and Holly kind of took a little bit of my thunder.
Oh Lord.
But we are truth revealed, and we don't make apologies for our faith here. And just to kind of echo what Holly was saying about the children of Israel, in Jeremiah 29:11, very popular scripture. For I know the thoughts that I have towards you, says the Lord, thoughts to prosper you and give you, I'm paraphrasing, give you an expected end. Jeremiah's preaching a sermon to the children, and they were in Babylonian captivity. And even then, God was telling his people, I know the thoughts that I have for you, and it's good. And so, is what you guys have all said. He knows the thoughts that he has for us, and his thoughts are good. And there's been something that he's instilled in us as a people that, and still I rise.
Come on.
It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
We gonna take the pig and we gonna give us the slop of it, and honey, we're gonna make a whole soul food meal. We are resourceful. We're gonna take the little and we're gonna make it much, and we're gonna cultivate it, and it becomes a whole delicacy, and it's a part of our culture. NASA delicacy. And so, I am hopeful. I'm glad that you guys have came and been a part. Thank you so much for your expertise, Connie, and breaking down these different laws and things that have taken place. Shanita, your expertise from that HR background. We are sincerely appreciative, and I hope for all of those who have listened to this conversation that it does also get your wheels to spinning, and that you are encouraged that there's more for us than against us. We're better together, and that even though there are things that have taken place, it's not the end all be all. We will put information for both Shanita and Connie in our show notes. So when you go listen to the podcast on all streaming podcast avenues, you'll be able to see that these two wonderful women are both authors. And so, don't be shy. Cop their stuff. Shanita, I still need to get your book. But put my own self on blast. But yeah, support. That's the support. We've been challenged to get out into our communities and help the next generation, because them babies need help. They can't even write in cursive. That's a whole nother subject. Yes, I see it every day. They don't know how to write in cursive. They can't even read the Declaration of Independence. I digress. But thank you guys so much for being a part. Thank you guys for listening. As always, like, share, and subscribe.
Please.
Please subscribe. And we will see you next time.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.